welcome to another episode of Fantasy Reality. And this time, let's talk about female combatants in fantasies. In fantasy. The idea of a woman warrior is not a new idea. And, in fact, the idea of a woman serving in a military capacity has actually been around for well over 1,000 years, if not longer. Because during the classical Greek and Roman period, you had the Amazons. They were said to be an all-female tribe of warriors who would engage in combat with everybody else. And they are known for being fierce fighters. Whether or not they were real, that's open to interpretation, because we just don't know. Were they real, or were they just a myth, a legend? Because there is numerous references to them. They're mentioned in the stories about Hercules. They're mentioned in the story about Troy. And there's a couple other stories involving them from various places. And the Chinese, they have their own mythology about a female warrior named Ha Mulan. I am pretty certain I mispronounced the first name and possibly the second name, but and where basically the China was in danger of being attacked, and there was orders to conscript one male from every family, and her father was aged and had an injury that prevented him from being of any real use in the military, so she cut her hair, put on the clothes of a man, and went off in his place as his son, which is what the Disney movie Mulan is about. How she cut her hair, put on her father's old armor, and went into the service. And as mentioned throughout history, there's mentions of women who would dress up as men and join the service or the military, and have been, and even today, of course, so these days you have women who openly enlist, and they go through training, and some of them, yep, you're good. Welcome to the Marines, kid. Among other things. Although it's only more recently that the United States military has allowed women to be frontline fighters. Well, in the last few years anyways. But there has indeed, but since these women, whether or not they were real or fictional, have existed since history, you can at least claim that there's precedent to allowing women to serve in a fantasy world. Although, in many cases, there's going to be some difficulties in, say, having an all-female military. And that's because there's a lot of important things to consider. One situation is, just how strong are women? Well, I have a stepsister, I'll admit to that, and, well, let's be honest, when we was younger, every time we got into a scrap, she'd kick my butt. I will admit to that. She would beat me. Then again, she played dirty. Well, let's just say, when you're not as physically strong as the guy you're fighting, you resort to dirty tricks. You go for their eyes. You grab onto whatever you can and just make them suffer pain to the point that it's like, no point in fighting her, run away! And let's face it, she tended to win because of one trick or another. On the other hand, I have good reason to believe that I am, at the very least, physically stronger than her. Because I could probably quite easily walk up behind her and go, "Hello, sis!" and pick her up at least a foot off the ground. I can't quite see her doing that to me. I mean, maybe she could, but carrying me for more than a couple of seconds, I don't think so. On the other hand, I could at the very least hold her off the ground for at least 10 seconds. Unless your husband was right behind me. Then you're like, "Hello! Just saying hello to my sister." And in a sense, this is statistically true in the case of most men versus women, where physical competition, where physical tests are done, where they're seeing how much people can lift, how much they can carry, and all that sort of stuff. Most of the time, men perform superior compared to women. I'm not saying that, although there are exceptions where indeed a woman can outperform a man. It's just, in average terms of ratio, odds are that if you was to bet money, the man would usually outperform the woman. That being said, if the woman was trained and was, and as, for instance, if she was a martial art expert, martial arts, and did judo, karate, and all that sort of stuff, weight lifted for most of her life, then yes, she stands a good chance of, at the very least, being on par or even better than the average man. So there's that. Now, let's see here. Let's put them as a member of the fantasy military. You'd have to think, what would justify having a woman in the military? One possibility is that she decides to disguise herself as a man. Okay? That's a common enough reason. Sir, I'm here to enlist. I'm just really young and I can't grow a beard yet. Which, indeed, is a justifiable and somewhat plausible explanation. Or, sir, it's like, oh, I just can't grow a beard, sir. I have a hard time trying to grow my facial hair. You know, again, plausible. Of course, that's like on an individual basis. As for having a large-scale unit, there might be a psychological factor in that, or even a strategic reason, in that it's humiliating for a man to be beaten by a woman. And let's face it, if you're a guy and you've been on the wrong end of a verbal discussion with your sister, or let's face it, your wife, or it's like, sheesh, how did she beat me in that argument? And of course, if you're younger and you're a bunch of kids, and of course rules are a little looser in that situation, and until you actually get into a fight, or until you're playing basketball, for instance, or some sort of thing, and it's like she outperforms you, and it's like, I can't believe I lost to a girl. It'd make you want to do a whole lot better now, wouldn't it? And maybe it's, and for strategic, what if, say, you're dealing with an opponent who cannot be beaten by a man? Maybe a woman could do the job and beat him. But for large scale purposes, usually men and women, well, men, like I said, like I mentioned, are usually physically more fit than, are physically more stronger than a woman, usually. That being said, wouldn't be much of a surprise if there was like a certain criteria where it's like, okay, you meet this criteria, you can join. You can join the service. And it wouldn't be too much of a surprise if there were women who can meet the criteria and be in, and of course men who can't meet the criteria and, sorry mate, sorry buddy, you didn't make the cut. So there's that. Another plausible reason is if women are indeed trained alongside of men, but instead of sending them on campaign to fight against the enemy whom we decided to go to war against with because we don't like the way they smell, they stay at home as a home guard. And let's say the guys who don't like the fact that we wear clothes that cover our entire bodies, they say, okay, let's attack them. Only to find out that, oh, I thought you said that these guys were on campaign. I see a lot of people manning the walls here. More than what you said there'd be. You know, like I said, the women could act as a home guard. Quite literally, because that would be the reason why they'd be defending their hometown, is because their kids are over there. And history has shown time and time again, you do not mess with a woman if her kids are on the line. Of course, another possible reason as to why you'd have a lot of women in a military situation could be as a situation where, like I said, the men went off to fight, what if they all got... It was a devastating defeat. To the point that out of, say, 1,000 men that went off to fight, not even 50 returned home. Well, the women might be a little bit more vulnerable if, say, this other tribe tried to attack. So it wouldn't be implausible for the women to wear their dead husband's armor and carry their weapons and fend off these would-be raiders. It wouldn't be implausible. Or alternatively, the men are off to war and the women are staying at home. Raiders again try to attack it, and of course the women, they pick up their husband's spare weapons and armor. It's like, you want to face us, buddy? We're here to protect our kids. And the guys on the other side might go, okay, let's attack, only to get the butts handed to them. And it's like, if their women are that tough, I'd hate to fight their men. Let's run away. Let's have a peace. Let's have a truce and a peace treaty with these guys. We don't ever want to get involved in a war with them again. Of course, another plausible situation is, what if there's a sickness where a lot of the men are like down with the plague, for instance, and it wouldn't be implausible for the women to put on armor, put on helmets to disguise their hair, pick up the spears, carry a shield, march up to the walls, and basically convince the other side that we got a lot of people who are willing to fight. And if need be, you might have, say, the Lord. What if the Lord of the place was also indisposed because of said sickness? Well, the wife might wear her husband's armor and weapons, and maybe there's someone who's got a good bass voice who's like, listen, my Lord has been recovering from a sickness and cannot speak, so I will speak for him. He has commanded me to speak in his stead. He says to leave. You're not worth his time. And of course, if there's a siege going on, this is actually a very useful tactic, because each day that these guys are just waiting and not attacking and not actually fighting, that's a day for the men to recover. And if you can even hold out a siege for, like, say, at least a week, it's possible that the men, they can come back they can recover from their sickness, that they can get their strength back up, and soon enough, after a while, the women can, down below the wall, like, I'm glad you guys are finally recovered. Here, you can wear the armor and helmets and weapons now. And like I said, that tactic can buy enough time that it's possible that the men can recover from whatever sickness that they had, and, well, the place's defenders are now twice as strong, basically, if not stronger. And of course, if you're dealing with magic, and let's suppose the guy on the other side is one of those who just like to cause mischief, and so, let's turn them into a bunch of women. Well, that might be a funny situation. It's like, what happened, guys? You don't want to know, sir. It's a little tricky to explain. So these hunks that you're having here, they were actually women who disguised themselves as men. Oh, I see. That would be a funny story in and of itself. Still, overall, given that there have indeed been women who, throughout history, have been in the military, usually in disguise, although, and of course these days more openly. And of course you got all these myths about female warriors. Like I said, the idea of a female combatant in a fantasy setting, meh. Hey, it's your work. If you want them, although you're gonna have to, like I said, you might need to do a little bit of justifying. Maybe their skill, maybe they able to use maneuvers that men are physically either incapable of performing. Like maybe they can. Okay, the guys will be right here to cause a big distraction, while a number of women who are slimmer are able to get through this narrow opening, so that way they can ambush the enemy from behind, basically. Which is plausible. Or maybe they are able to come up with a strategy that most men, for one reason or another, can't figure out how to make. Or maybe it's just that they see something that a man normally wouldn't, because maybe the man is typically more aggressive, whereas the woman's like, one moment, I've been looking at their armor, and they got a weakness at this particular joint. So, I mean, it all depends. Sometimes you can justify it by saying that there was a sickness, that there was a battle, and because of this, to defend themselves, women start joining the military, or the defense. They take up arms and armor. That's a plausible explanation. Or maybe they decided that they were sick of doing, quote, female jobs, and decided to enlist in the military. And, well, all kinds of crazy things. In any case, it's going to be kind of interesting if you use them as if you're playing if you're doing the story from the point of view of a female character in what is typically considered a man's world. It's usually interesting. Well, that's it for this episode of Fantasy Reality. See you in the next one.